The alien general laughed. He actually laughed. When his communications officer showed him the message from Earth, General Vorkan of the Scath Empire read it 3 times. Then he leaned back in his enormous command chair, looked at his officers standing around him, and laughed so hard that the yellow plates on his chest rattled. The message was simple. It was only 2 sentences. We received your ultimatum. We are sending a response team. They will arrive in 72 hours. That was it. No threats, no list of weapons, no promise of a counterattack. Just 2 quiet sentences and a small symbol at the bottom. A blue circle with a single white line through it. Earth's official seal, a response team, General Vorkan said. Still smiling, he looked at his second-in-command. Commander Didnt, a tall, thin alien with 4 arms and eyes like black glass.
They are sending a response team. Yes.
General, Didnt said carefully. Not an army, Vorkan said. No. General, not a fleet, no. A team. Vorkan repeated the word slowly, like it was something funny. The humans are sending a team. The whole bridge laughed. And why wouldn't they laugh? The Scath Empire had 500 warships in this sector alone. They had already destroyed 2 human outer colonies in less than a week. Just to show that they were serious, just to make Earth understand that the ultimatum was real. The ultimatum was simple, too. Surrender all outer space territories. Pay a tribute of resources every year. Accept Scath rule or be destroyed. The Scath had done this to 11 other civilizations. 9 of them surrendered. 2 of them fought. Those 2 did not exist anymore. Now it was Earth's turn, and Earth sent a team. 72 hours later, a single ship appeared on the Scath scanners. It was tiny. The scanner operator blinked and looked again. He thought maybe the machine had an error, but no, the reading was correct. The ship coming from Earth was smaller than one of their supply drones. It had no weapon signature, no energy cannons, no shield strong enough to stop even a basic attack. It was just a small gray shuttle moving slowly toward the Scath flagship. General, the scanner operator said quietly, the human ship is here. Vorkan walked over and looked at the screen. His smile came back. That is their response team, he said. That little thing. Yes, General. How many life signs? 12. Sir? Vorkan stared at the number for a long moment. 12. Earth had an army of millions. They had space stations, orbital defense platforms, weapons that the Scath intelligence reports described as creative and unpredictable. They had fought off the Makari raiders 20 years ago with weapons no one expected. They had done things in battle that made other species uncomfortable, because humans did not fight the way normal civilizations fought. Humans were strange. Everyone in the galaxy knew this, but still, 12 people against a fleet of 500 warships. Let them land, Vorkan said. I want to see this response team. The shuttle docked in Bay 7 of the Scath flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 400 Scath soldiers were waiting. They stood in perfect lines, weapons raised, armor gleaming under the bright bay lights. They had enough firepower in that one room to destroy a small building. Vorkan had ordered it, not because he was afraid, but because he wanted the humans to see power the moment they stepped off their little ship. He wanted them to understand immediately that this was over. The shuttle door opened. Steam came out first. Then 12 figures walked down the ramp. They were wearing simple black uniforms. No armor, no helmets, no visible weapons. Just black clothes with small patches on the shoulders. The same blue circle symbol from the message. They walked slowly, not fast, not slow, just steady, like people who were not in any kind of hurry. Vorkan watched them from the upper level, looking down through the glass. They looked ordinary. That was the strange part. He had expected something, some kind of show, some human display of confidence or aggression. But these 12 people just walked off their ship and stood still, looking around the bay calmly, like they were checking into a hotel. The one at the front was a woman. She was not tall, she was not large, she had short dark hair, and her eyes moved slowly around the room, looking at the soldiers, the walls, the lights, the ceiling, the doors. She was not looking with fear. She was looking the way someone looks when they are learning a place, memorizing it. Her name, as Vorkan would later learn, was Captain Vera Mace, and she was the most dangerous person in that room. But he did not know that yet. Vorkan came down to the bay himself. He walked through the lines of his soldiers and stopped 10 feet from the 12 humans. He was twice their height. His armor was decorated with the marks of 40 years of military service. He had conquered planets. He had watched civilizations fall. He was not a small creature in any sense of the word. He looked down at Vera Mace. She looked up at him. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Vorkan said through his translator device, You are Earth's response. Yes, Vera said. 12 people. Yes. Vorkan waited for her to say something else. Some explanation, some apology, some request. But she just stood there looking at him with those calm, steady eyes like she had all the time in the world. Do you understand your situation? Vorkan asked. He meant it as a statement, but it came out as a question somehow. Something about her quietness did that. We understand it completely, Vera said. Then you understand that you have no options, Vorkan said. You are on my ship, you are surrounded, Earth is far away. Whatever you came here to do, negotiate, threaten, beg, it does not matter. The answer is the same, Earth will surrender, or Earth will burn. Vera nodded slowly like she was listening to something she had already heard before. We are not here to negotiate, she said. Then what are you here for? We are here to give you one chance, she said. Our message told you that we said we were sending a response team. We did not say we were sending diplomats, Vorkan stared at her. The Bay was very quiet. One chance, he repeated slowly. Yes, Vera said. You have 24 hours to contact your empire and tell them to cancel the ultimatum. If you do that, we leave, no problem, everyone goes home. Vorkan looked at the 11 people standing behind her. Then back at her. And if I don't? Vera did not answer right away. She looked around the bay one more time at the soldiers. The walls, the ceiling, the doors. Then she looked back at him. Then we get to work, she said. Vorkan had them put in cells, of course he did. He was not going to hurt them, not yet. That would cause political problems. Killing a diplomatic team, even a very strange one, was not something you did without paperwork. Besides, he was curious now. He wanted to know what Earth was thinking. What kind of plan involved sending 12 unarmed people onto an enemy warship? So he put them in the holding cells on level 6 and told his officers to watch them. The cells were strong. The doors were made of hardened alloy. The locks were electronic with 3 backup systems. The cameras watched every corner. There were guards posted at every entrance. It was a good prison, as prisons go. Vorkan went back to the bridge and started writing his report. He was going to tell the Empire that Earth's response was 12 humans and a strange threat. He was going to recommend proceeding with the original plan. Give Earth their 24 hours as the humans asked, not because of their request, but because the paperwork needed time anyway, and then begin the first phase of the assault. He had done this before, he knew how it worked. He felt completely in control. He did not feel that way for long. 6 hours after the humans were locked up, one of his junior officers knocked on his door. General, the officer said, and something in the officer's voice made Vorkan look up immediately. We have a problem. What problem? The officer looked uncomfortable. Cell 7 is empty. Sir? Vorkan stood up slowly. What do you mean? Empty. The human in cell 7, the officer said. He is not there, the door is still locked. The camera still shows the room, but the room is empty. The human is gone. Vorkan stared at the officer. That is not possible, Vorkan said. No, sir, the officer agreed. But it is happening. They found the man from cell 7 40 minutes later. He was in the kitchen. Not breaking anything, not stealing weapons, not trying to reach a communications panel. He was sitting at a table in the crew kitchen on level 4, eating something he had apparently made himself from the food supplies, and talking to 2 young Scath crew members who had come in for their break. When the guards burst in, all 3 of them looked up. The human, his name tag said Reyes, put down his cup calmly. Hey, he said pleasantly, your crew makes good coffee. Well, not coffee exactly, but whatever this is, it's good. The 2 Scath crew members looked guilty. They had been talking to him for 20 minutes. They had not reported him because somehow, in 20 minutes, this human had made them feel like they were just having a normal conversation. The guards grabbed Reyes and brought him back to his cell. They checked the door, they checked the lock. They reviewed the camera footage frame by frame. They could not understand how he got out. The door had never opened. Vorkan reviewed the footage himself. He watched it 4 times. At the 3-hour, 14-minute mark, the human called Reyes was sitting on the floor of his cell. He appeared to be sleeping, or at least resting with his eyes closed. At the 3-hour, 15-minute mark, the cell was empty. 1 minute, that was all. Vorkan rewound the footage. Watched it again, there was no malfunction. No glitch, no cut in the recording. The human was there, then the human was not there. Check the other cells, Vorkan said quietly. His officer left the room. Vorkan stood alone in the surveillance room, watching the empty cell on the screen, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not fear exactly, but something close to it. His officer came back 3 minutes later. The officer's face was a color Vorkan had never seen on a Scoth face before. "General," the officer said, his voice barely above a whisper. "All 12 cells are empty." Vorkan turned very slowly. "They are all gone," the officer nodded. "Where are the guards?" "That is the other problem, sir," the officer said. "We cannot find the guards either. Down on level 3, in a maintenance corridor that the cameras did not cover. Captain Vera Mace stood with her 11 team members. They were all there, all 12. None of them were hurt. None of them were rushing. They stood in the quiet, dark corridor, and Vera looked at each face, and each face looked back at her. These were not ordinary soldiers. Reyes had spent 4 years in a black site learning how to survive in any environment and escape any room. He had gotten out of that cell in 11 minutes using a piece of metal he had quietly removed from his boot heel during the walk from the shuttle. Chen, standing to Vera's left, was a former deep-cover intelligence operative. She had spent 2 years living as a different person in an enemy nation and never been caught. She had learned the Scoth Guard rotation simply by listening to footsteps through her cell wall for 6 hours. Torres, behind her, could disable electronic systems without tools. He had done it to the cameras on level 6 17 minutes ago. Every one of the 12 had a story like this. Every one of them had been chosen not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most heavily trained in combat. They had been chosen because they were something rarer than that. They were people who could not be stopped by normal things. Vera looked at them all and spoke quietly. "They have 5,000 crew on this ship," she said. "They think we are in our cells. They think they are safe. They have 24 hours before they do something that cannot be undone. So we have 24 hours. She looked around the group. "Let's get to work." In the darkness of the corridor, 12 humans moved silently into the belly of the most powerful warship in the Scoth fleet. And not one alarm went off, not one. General Vorkan did not sleep that night. He sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and stared at the screens in front of him. Every screen showed a different part of his ship: corridors, engine rooms, storage bays, crew quarters, cafeterias, weapons decks, 5,000 rooms on 500 levels, and he was watching all of them. Nothing, no humans, no alarms, no sounds. It was like they had disappeared into the walls. He had sent 300 soldiers to search level 6 where the cells were. They found nothing. He had sent another 200 to search levels 4 and 5. They found nothing. He had locked down every exit on the ship, every shuttle bay, every airlock, every emergency hatch. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, and still nothing. "How?" Vorkan said quietly to no one. Commander Dreth stood beside him, also watching the screens, also saying nothing. Because there was nothing useful to say. The humans were somewhere on this ship, 12 of them, and a ship with 5,000 trained soldiers could not find them. What Vorkan did not know, what he could not know, was that the humans were not hiding. They were working. Vera Mace moved through the maintenance corridor on level 8 like she had been born in it. She kept one hand lightly on the wall, feeling the vibration of the ship's systems through the metal. Every ship has a rhythm, a pulse like a living thing. Vera had learned this a long time ago. She had learned it in dark places, in situations much worse than this one. She knew how to read a ship by feeling it. She counted the vibrations. Engine room, 3 levels down, she could feel it. Power relay, 40 meters ahead. She could hear it. Guard station. She stopped. Listened, 2 sets of footsteps, they were not moving. Standing guards, probably bored, probably not paying full attention. They never did after the first 2 hours. She waited. She counted to 60. Then she moved past them without a sound. Chen was on level 12. She was doing something that looked, to any outside observer, completely impossible. She was having a conversation. She had found a young Scoth technician working alone in a small communications relay room. The technician's name, as far as Chen could tell from the name badge, was something that sounded like Crit. He was young, probably on his first posting, sitting alone doing maintenance work at 2 in the morning ship time. Chen had simply walked in and sat down across from him. The technician had frozen completely. "Hello," Chen said in the Scoth language. She had spent the last 6 hours in her cell, memorizing the basic phrases from the sound she heard through the wall. She was not fluent, not even close, but she had enough. The technician stared at her like she was a ghost. "I am not going to hurt you," Chen said slowly, carefully. "I just want to talk." The technician looked at the door. "You can call the guards," Chen said. "That is your choice. But before you do, can I ask you something first?" The technician said nothing, but he did not move toward the door either. Chen leaned forward slightly. "Do you want to be here?" she asked. "On this ship?" Doing this, it was a strange question. Kret had not expected it. He had expected threats. He had expected the human to grab him, use him as a hostage, demand something. That was what enemies did. That was what soldiers did. But this human just sat across from him with calm eyes and asked if he wanted to be here. And the honest answer, the answer Kret had never said out loud to anyone, was no. He was 19 years old. He had been drafted 8 months ago. He had wanted to be an engineer, design buildings, not serve on a warship watching humans get locked in cells. He was scared most of the time, and he did not think the war was a good idea, and he missed his family, and he had nobody on this ship to talk to. He did not say any of this, but somehow, the way he didn't say it, the silence, the way his shoulders dropped slightly, the way his eyes moved, Chen read every word of it. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said softly. "That's okay." She stood up to leave. "Wait," Kret said. Before he could stop himself, Chen stopped. "How did you get out?" Kret asked. "Of the cells how?" Chen smiled at him. "That is a very long story," she said. "But I will tell you this much. We have been in much worse places than your cells." She walked to the door, then stopped. "The shift change for guards on level 3, she said. Without turning around, "What time is it?" Kret should not have answered. He knew he should not have answered. 400, he said quietly. Chen nodded and walked out. Reyes was in the walls. Literally, the Eternal Dominion had maintenance shafts running through it like veins. Thin metal tunnels just big enough for a person to crawl through. They were for repair drones, not people. But Reyes was not a large man, and he had spent 3 years in places smaller than this. He was mapping the ship. In his head, he was building a picture of every shaft, every junction, every drop point. He had been doing this for 4 hours now, moving quietly through the darkness. Sometimes he would stop and listen through a wall to the room on the other side. Sometimes he would find a vent and look through it, counting soldiers, noting weapon positions, marking patrol routes. He had a near-perfect memory. This was not a talent he was born with. It was something that had been trained into him over years of situations where forgetting a detail could get him killed. His brain stored information like a filing system now, automatically, constantly by his 0300. He had a complete map of levels 3 through 9 in his head. He found a junction point where 4 shafts met and settled in. He pulled a tiny piece of metal from inside his collar and started scratching the map into the shaft wall in small, careful lines. Not for himself, he did not need it, for the others, in case something happened to him. Then he kept moving. Torres was the quiet one. Of the 12, he spoke the least. He had always been this way, even before the training, even before the operations and the missions and the years of doing things in dark places that he could never talk about. He had been quiet. He communicated better with machines than with people. Right now, that was exactly what was needed. He was crouched in front of an electronic panel on level 4. The panel controlled the ship's internal communications, the system the crew used to talk to each other, issue orders, send alerts. It was protected by 3 layers of encryption and a physical lock. Torres had bypassed 2 of the encryption layers in 20 minutes using only his fingers and a thin piece of wire he had taken from inside his boot. The 3rd layer was harder. He sat with it for a long time, not frustrated, not rushing, just thinking, the way he always thought. Slowly. Completely from every angle. Most people, when they faced a locked door, thought about how to break through it. Torres thought about what the door was afraid of. Every system had a weakness. Not a flaw exactly, more like a pressure point. A place where if you pushed in just the right way, the whole thing shifted. He found it at 330. It was a tiny redundancy loop in the 3rd encryption layer, a backup system that was supposed to protect the main system, but actually created a small gap, like a door that locks from the inside but has a window next to it. Torres pushed. The panel opened. He did not change anything. He did not send any messages. He did not want them to know he had been here. He just looked. He read the ship's internal communication logs for the last 6 hours and memorized everything important. Guard positions, shift changes, the general schedule, which levels were being searched, which levels had been cleared and were now empty. Then he closed the panel carefully, made sure it looked exactly as it had before, and moved on. Back on level 6 in the now empty cell block, something strange was happening. A guard named Preth was walking his patrol route. He had been doing this patrol for 4 hours and nothing had happened, and he was very bored and his feet hurt. He turned the corner at the end of the corridor and stopped. There was a human sitting on the floor. Just sitting there in the middle of the corridor, with his back against the wall and his eyes closed. The human's name was Dr. Marcus Webb. He was the 12th member of the team, and his role was very different from the others. Preth raised his weapon immediately and called for backup. 2 more guards came running. All 3 of them stood over the human with weapons pointed at him. Webb opened his eyes slowly. He looked at the 3 weapons pointed at his face, and he did not flinch. He did not raise his hands in panic. He just looked at the weapons calmly and then looked at the guards and said, in very slow and careful Scoth, "I would like to speak with General Vorkan." "Please." The guards looked at each other. "You are supposed to be in a cell," one of them said. "Yes," Webb agreed pleasantly, "but I came out. I thought it was better to come to you rather than make you keep searching." "You look tired." The guard's mouth opened and then closed again. "Take me to the general," Webb said. "I have something important to tell him. And I think when you hear what it is, you will agree it was worth waking him up." Vorkan was awake already. He had never gone to sleep. When his guards brought Webb to the bridge, Vorkan looked at the human for a long moment without speaking. Then he looked at his guards, then back at the human. "Where are the others?" Vorkan said. "On your ship," Webb said simply. "Where on my ship?" Webb smiled slightly. "I don't know exactly," he said. "We do not all share locations. It is safer that way. Each person works separately. They only come together when it is time." "Time for what? Time to finish," Webb said. Vorkan stepped closer to him, using his height deliberately, looking down at this small, quiet human who had somehow walked out of a locked cell and presented himself on the bridge as if he owned it. "You are going to tell me where they are," Vorkan said. "No," Webb said without any drama, just simply, like someone saying the weather. "You understand I can make you tell me. You can try," Webb said. "But I should save you the time. It will not work, not because I am especially brave. I am not. But because of what I used to do. I was a psychologist, General. I worked for 12 years studying what breaks people and what doesn't. And then I spent 6 more years learning personally what it takes to break me. The answer is more than you have time for." Vorkan stared at him. "Then why are you here?" Vorkan said. "Why did you come out and let yourself be caught if you will not help me find the others?" Webb looked up at him with his calm eyes. "Because I am the distraction," Webb said. Vorkan's head turned sharply toward his communications officer. "General," the communications officer said, and his voice was very strange. "Something is happening on level 2. "What? The power relays. Sir, the lights on level 2 are going off. Section by section, someone is manually switching them off." One by one, Vorkan turned back to Webb. Webb's small smile had gotten slightly wider. "While you have been talking to me," Webb said quietly, "they have been working on level 2. In the growing darkness, Vera Mace walked slowly down the corridor. Behind her, section by section, the lights went out. She was not trying to hide anymore. The first phase was done. The mapping was done. The communication logs were read. The guard schedules were memorized. The weak points were found. The pressure points were identified. Now it was time for the second phase. She touched the small device on her wrist. Not a weapon, just a communicator. One of 4 that the team had built from parts taken from maintenance panels during the night. She pressed it twice. Across the ship, 11 people felt 2 vibrations on their wrists. They all stopped what they were doing. They all turned toward where they needed to go next. The Eternal Dominion had 5,000 crew members. It had 500 levels. It had weapons that could destroy a city from orbit, and 12 humans, who had spent one night quietly walking through its walls, reading its secrets, learning its rhythms, mapping its weakness, had just sent each other a signal. The signal meant, Phase 2, begin. In the darkness of Level 2, Vera Mace kept walking. She was not afraid. She had been in places darker than this. She had been in situations with worse odds than this. She had been trained, not to be the strongest person in the room, not to be the loudest, not to carry the biggest weapon, but to be the last one standing when everything else had failed. And right now, in the belly of the most powerful Scoth warship in the sector, with 5,000 enemy soldiers between her and the exit, Vera Mace felt completely at home on the bridge. General Vorkan watched Level 2 go dark on his screens. He looked at Dr. Webb. Webb looked back at him. "General," Vorkan's scanner officer said, voice tight. "I am reading movement. Multiple contacts. They are not hiding anymore. They are moving toward the same location." "Which location?" A pause. "The engine room, sir." The bridge went very quiet. Vorkan understood what that meant. If they reached the engine room, if 12 humans with no weapons and no armor somehow reached the engine room of his flagship, then he would have a very serious problem. "All units," he said into the ship-wide communicator. His voice loud and hard. Move to the engine room. All units, maximum speed, stop them. He looked at Webb one more time. Webb was no longer smiling. He looked almost sad. General, Webb said quietly, I told you this morning that you had 24 hours to make a choice. That was 21 hours ago. He looked at the dark screen showing level 2. You have 3 hours left. 5,000 soldiers moved at once. The corridors of the Eternal Dominion filled with the sound of boots on metal, the click of weapons being readied, the sharp voices of officers shouting orders. Every available unit on every level got the same message at the same moment. Move to the engine room. Stop the humans, maximum speed. It was an impressive response. It was also exactly what Vera had planned for. She was not going to the engine room, none of them were. Vera stood in the darkness of level 2 and listened to the sound of 5,000 soldiers rushing past her, above her, below her, all moving in the same direction, all focused on the same place. She counted the footsteps the way another person might count raindrops, automatically, naturally, without effort. She pressed her wrist communicator 3 times. Across the ship, 11 people felt 3 vibrations. 3 vibrations meant they are moving, the corridors are clearing. Go now. Reyes dropped out of a maintenance shaft on level 9. The corridor was empty. 20 minutes ago, this corridor had been full of soldiers. Now they were all gone. Rushing down toward the engine room 14 levels below, he stood up, brushed dust off his black uniform, and walked calmly to the door at the end of the corridor. Behind that door was the ship's secondary communications array. Not the main one. Torres had already read the main one. This was the backup system, the one the crew would switch to if the main system was damaged. It was less protected, less watched, less important in normal times. But right now it was the most important room on the ship. Reyes opened the door. The room was small and full of humming equipment. Screens and panels covered every wall. Blinking with soft light, there was one technician inside. He was young and he was alone, and when Reyes walked in, he stood up so fast he knocked his chair over. Sit down, Reyes said gently. Please, I mean it. I am not here to hurt you. Sit down. The technician did not sit down. He reached for the alarm panel on the wall. Reyes crossed the room in 3 steps and put his hand over the alarm panel. Not grabbing the technician, not threatening him, just calmly placing his hand over the button. My name is Reyes, he said. Standing very close now, speaking quietly. What is your name? The technician stared at him. I know you are scared, Reyes said. That is completely normal. I would be scared too. But I need you to hear me for 30 seconds, just 30 seconds. Can you do that? Something about the voice. The quietness of it, the lack of aggression, made the technician's hand stop reaching. 30 seconds, Reyes said again. The technician gave a tiny nod. Thank you, Reyes said, and he meant it. Here's what I need you to understand. We are not here to destroy your ship. We are not here to kill anyone. We came here to stop a war before it starts. A war that will kill people on your side too, not just ours. Do you understand what I'm saying? The technician said nothing, but his eyes were listening. All I need, Reyes said, is 5 minutes at that console. Just 5 minutes, then I will leave. You can call whoever you want after that. You can tell them everything. I am not going to stop you. He stepped back from the alarm panel. He was no longer blocking it. The technician looked at the panel, then at Reyes, then at the panel again. He sat down slowly in his chair. He did not press the alarm. Reyes walked to the main console and got to work. Chen was on level 15. She was doing something much simpler than what Reyes was doing, and much more dangerous. She was following the general's second-in-command. Commander Didnt had left the bridge 12 minutes ago. He was moving through the ship with 2 personal guards, checking on the search operation, making sure the units were in position around the engine room, doing the things a second-in-command does when his commander is occupied. Chen stayed 30 meters behind him. This was a skill that took years to learn properly. Following someone in an enclosed space, a ship, a building, a station, was much harder than following someone in an open city. There were fewer people to hide behind, fewer turns to use, fewer places to disappear. Most people who tried it made a mistake within the first 5 minutes. Chen had not made a mistake like that in 11 years. She watched Didnt the way a scientist watches a specimen, learning his walking speed, the way he moved his head, how often he checked behind him, how far ahead he looked. She was building a picture of him, the way she built pictures of everyone she followed. A complete picture, how he thought, what he noticed. What he did not notice, what she was really looking for, was simple. She wanted to know if Commander Didnt was the kind of person who followed orders. or the kind of person who made decisions that mattered. She needed to know before the next phase. Didnt stopped at a corridor junction and spoke to one of his guards. Chen stopped too, pressing herself against the wall in a shadow. Completely still, she watched his hands while he talked. The angle of his body, the way the guard responded. She had her answer in 40 seconds. Didnt was a decision maker. That was good. That was exactly what she needed. Torres had found the engine room, not to go inside. He had no intention of going inside. The engine room was surrounded by soldiers now, hundreds of them, all waiting for the humans to appear. It would have been a very bad place to actually go. But the engine room had a service corridor running along its left side, a thin passage used by maintenance crews to access the outer panels without going through the main room. The soldiers had not sealed it. It was too small for most of them to fit through comfortably, and they had probably decided no one would use it. Torres fit through it easily. He moved through the service corridor until he found what he was looking for, a junction box set into the wall between the corridor and the engine room. It controlled the power flow to the engine room's lighting and internal systems. Not the engines themselves, not anything that would damage the ship, just the lights and the internal panels. He opened the junction box. He looked at the wiring inside for a long moment, then he started to work. General Vorkin stood on the bridge and watched his screens. His soldiers were in position around the engine room. Every entrance covered, every vent sealed, every access point guarded. The humans were coming here. The scanner had shown multiple contacts moving in this direction, and when they arrived they would find 500 soldiers waiting. It was a good trap, he was sure of it. "Sir," his scanner officer said, "the contacts." "They have stopped moving." Vorkin looked at the screen. The small dots that represented the human life signs were scattered across several levels. None of them were moving toward the engine room anymore. They had simply suddenly stopped. "Where are they?" Vorkin said. "Level 2, Level 9. Level 15, Level 7, sir, they are. They are spread out across the ship. They are not together." Vorkin stared at the screen. They were never going to the engine room. The realization arrived in his mind slowly. Like cold water, they were never going there. It was a trick. He had moved 5,000 soldiers away from everywhere else on the ship and concentrated them in one place. And the humans had used that movement. Used the empty corridors. Used the distraction. He had done exactly what they wanted. "Move units back to their positions," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Now full spread. Cover every level." "Sir." "Which levels do we prioritize?" "All of them," Vorkin said sharply. "Sir, we do not have enough." "All of them," he said again. Dr. Webb was still on the bridge. Nobody had moved him because nobody had decided what to do with him. He was sitting in a chair near the back wall, not restrained, not guarded closely, because all the guards were busy with other things and Webb had given no reason to think he would try anything. He was just sitting quietly, watching. He watched Vorkin's face when the general realized the engine room was a trick. He watched the way Vorkin's shoulders changed, the slight tension that moved through his body, the way his eyes went hard and then uncertain and then hard again. Webb had spent 18 years studying exactly this. The moment when a powerful person realizes they are not as in control as they thought, it was always the same. Always that same sequence, the denial first, then the recalculation, then the decision about whether to double down or adapt. Vorkin was doubling down. Webb had expected that. He stood up quietly from his chair. The nearest guard looked at him immediately. "I need to use the bathroom," Webb said simply. The guard looked at another guard. They were not sure of the protocol for this. No one had told them what to do if the human prisoner asked for the bathroom. "There is 120 meters down that corridor," Webb said helpfully. Pointing, one guard went with him. Webb walked to the bathroom, went inside. And the guard stood outside the door. Inside the bathroom, Webb stood at the sink and ran cold water over his wrists for 30 seconds. A habit from his training days. Something that kept his mind clear and his heart rate down. He looked at himself in the mirror. He looked tired. They were all tired. But tired was different from finished. He dried his hands, walked back out, nodded pleasantly to the guard, and walked back to his chair on the bridge. On his way, he passed the communications console. He did not stop. He did not touch anything. He just walked past it, but he looked at the screen for exactly 2 seconds as he passed. That was enough. Vera was on level 1. Level 1 was the top of the ship. The command level, it held the bridge, the general's quarters, the senior officers' rooms, and the main communications center. It was the most protected level on the ship. Normally, right now, most of its guards were somewhere else. She moved through the corridor with Torres beside her. They had met at the junction point 20 minutes ago as planned. Torres had done his work at the junction box, and now they were here. Together. Moving toward the main communication center. How long? Vera said quietly. 10 minutes, Torres said, equally quiet. Maybe less, some guards at 2 on the door. 2 inside, the inside ones are watching screens. Not the door, Vera nodded. She stopped at a corner and looked around it. 2 Scath soldiers stood at the communication center door. Big, armed, alert. These ones had not gone rushing to the engine room. These ones were doing their job. She looked at Torres. Torres looked back at her. This was the moment, not the technical part. Not the navigation, not the mapping. This was the part that separated this team from every other team. This was why they had been chosen. They did not rush. They stood at that corner for 4 full minutes. Just watching, just listening, just waiting. And in those 4 minutes, they learned everything they needed. The guards talked to each other twice. Short exchanges, impatient, distracted. They were aware that something was happening on other levels. Their attention was partly elsewhere. One of them shifted his weight every 40 seconds. A habit, predictable. The other one kept glancing at his communicator. 4 minutes, then Vera walked around the corner. She walked directly toward the 2 guards. Not sneaking, not rushing, just walking normally. Like someone who belonged there. Like someone on her way to do a job. The guard saw her immediately. Stop, one of them said. Raising his weapon, Vera stopped. She raised her hand slowly. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of communications, she said calmly. In careful Scath. I have a message from Dr. Webb on the bridge General Vorkin sent me. The guards looked at each other. That half second of looking at each other was all Torres needed. He had come around the corner behind her, silent. And in that half second he was already at the panel beside the door. His fingers moved across it fast and certain. And the lights in the corridor went out. In the darkness, 2 soft sounds. Then the lights came back on. Both guards were on the floor. Not dead, not badly hurt, but deeply asleep. Torres had found the pressure points in the Scath anatomy from the intelligence files 3 weeks ago, and memorized them the way he memorized everything. Completely and permanently. Vera lowered her hands. She looked at the 2 sleeping guards. Good, she said. Torres was already opening the communication center door. Inside, the 2 operators at the screen spun around. They saw Vera, they saw Torres, they looked at the door, they looked back. Please do not reach for anything, Vera said, in the same calm voice she used for everything. We are almost done. This will be over soon, I promise you that. Just sit still. One operator reached for an alarm. Torres was faster. 20 seconds later, both operators were also asleep in their chairs. Torres sat down at the main console. His hands moved across it like he had been using it his whole life. He had studied the Scath communication system from intelligence files for 2 months before this mission. He knew it better than most Scath technicians. In 90 seconds he had full access. He looked at Vera. Ready, he said. Vera stood in the center of the room and looked at the console. She had one transmission to make, one message. To every Scath ship in the sector, 200 warships, every screen, every speaker, every communications channel at once. She thought about what to say. She had known what she was going to say for 3 weeks. She had written it, rewritten it, practiced it. She knew every word. She looked at Torres. Open everything, she said. Torres pressed the key. Every channel opened. Every ship in the Scath fleet received the signal simultaneously. Vera leaned forward and spoke. She spoke for 45 seconds. When she finished, Torres closed the channel. The communication center was very quiet. Outside, across 200 Scath warships spread across the sector. The same silence was spreading, ship by ship, crew member by crew member, as everyone who had heard what Vera just said stopped what they were doing and went completely still. Torres looked at Vera. Do you think it worked? He said. Vera straightened up. She thought about the 45 seconds she had just spoken. She thought about everything she knew about the Scath. Their culture, their military structure, what they feared, what they respected, what they could not ignore. She nodded once. It worked, she said. On the bridge, General Vorkin heard the transmission too. Every word of it. He stood completely still for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then he turned very slowly to look at Dr. Webb, still sitting quietly in his chair at the back of the bridge. Webb met his eyes. 3 hours, Webb said softly. That is what we told you. You had 3 hours left. It has been 2 hours and 58 minutes. Vorkin said nothing. He had no words. Because what Vera had just said to his entire fleet, 45 seconds that had silenced 200 warships, was not a threat. It was not a demand, it was the truth, and the truth, delivered at exactly the right moment in exactly the right way, was the most powerful weapon any human had ever found. The silence lasted 4 minutes. 4 full minutes across 200 Scath warships, 5,000 crew members on the flagship alone, and a general who had conquered planets standing completely still on his own bridge. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The only sound on the eternal dominion was the low hum of the engines and the soft breathing of the crew. Then General Vorkan turned to his communications officer and said, very quietly, "Get me the fleet commanders." All of them now. What had Vera said? That was the question on every ship. Every crew member who had heard the transmission was asking the same thing to the person next to them. What did she say? What does it mean? Is it true? Because if it was true, if even half of it was true, then everything was different. Vera had not threatened them. She had not told them that Earth had secret weapons. She had not told them that a fleet was coming. She had not made promises she could not keep. She had told them the truth, 45 seconds. Simple words, basic language, and the truth. She had started with one sentence. "My name is Captain Vera Mace, and I am standing in your flagship's communications center, which means your general is already our prisoner." That was the first thing. Not a boast, just a fact delivered quietly, the way facts are delivered. Then she had said the second thing. "We came here with 12 people because 12 was enough. Not because Earth is weak, but because Earth did not want to destroy you. An army destroys. We were sent to stop this before it became something that cannot be stopped." Then the third thing, the part that silenced everything. 3 months ago, your empire sent scouts to Earth's outer systems. We know this, we let them go, we let them report back. We let you believe you had complete intelligence on our capabilities. You do not. What your scouts saw was what we wanted them to see. She had paused there. Just for a moment. The 12 of us are not Earth's best fighters. We are not Earth's strongest soldiers. We are 12 people who volunteered to come here first, to give you a chance before Earth sends what comes next. Your scouts did not see what comes next. Nobody outside Earth has seen it. We built it after your ultimatum arrived. We built it in 90 days. Because that is what humans do when someone threatens our home. Another pause. I am not going to tell you what it is. I am going to give your general the same choice we gave him when we arrived. You have 1 hour to stand down. If you do, we leave. No war. No destruction. You go home. We go home. If you do not, what comes next leaves Earth in 6 hours. One final sentence. We did not want this. We still do not want this, but we are very, very good at it. Then she had closed the channel. Commander Didnt found Vera in the communications center. He came with no soldiers. That was the first surprising thing. He came alone, which told Chen everything she had already figured out about him, that he was a decision maker, that he had already made a decision, and that he did not need soldiers to deliver it. Chen was standing in the corridor outside the communications center when Didnt walked past her. He stopped, he looked at her, she looked at him. "You followed me," he said. It was not a question. "For 40 minutes, Chen said. "Why?" "I needed to know what kind of person you were," she said. He was quiet for a moment. "And what kind of person am I?" "The kind who makes decisions," Chen said. "The kind who will do the right thing even when it is not the easy thing." Didnt looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, a very small nod, and walked into the communications center. Vera looked up when the door opened. She saw Didnt, she saw that he was alone. She read his posture the way she read everything, completely. Instantly she knew before he said a word. "The general will not stand down," Didnt said. He said it without anger, without drama, just simply, the way a person states a fact they wish were different. "He is a proud creature. He has never retreated in 40 years. He does not know how to do it, I know," Vera said. "He is calling the fleet commanders now. He is going to order them to begin the assault on Earth's outer colonies. He believes your transmission was a bluff." Vera nodded slowly. "Is it a bluff?" Didnt asked. Vera looked at him. She did not smile. She did not look away. "No," she said. Didnt absorbed this. He stood very still. The way large creatures stand when they are thinking hard. "If I relieve him of command," Didnt said carefully. "Under military law, I need documented evidence of a decision that puts the fleet at unacceptable risk." "Yes," Vera said. "Your transmission could be considered that evidence," Didnt said. "If your claim about the communications center is verified, if you are truly standing where you say you are, then the general has demonstrably lost control of his flagship. That is grounds." "Yes," Vera said again. Didnt looked around the room. He looked at the 2 sleeping operators. He looked at Torres at the console. He looked at the open channels still glowing on the screens. He looked back at Vera. You planned for this, he said. You knew the general would not stand down. You knew someone would have to remove him. You needed it to be someone from inside. Vera said nothing. That was enough of an answer. Didnt was quiet for a very long time. Then he reached to his communicator and opened a channel to the bridge. This is Commander Didnt, he said, his voice steady and formal. Under Article 19 of the Scath Military Code, I am assuming temporary command of this vessel. General Vorkan is to be relieved immediately. Security is to stand down. All offensive operations are suspended pending review. A long silence on the other end. Then, confirmed, Commander. Didnt closed the channel. He looked at Vera. It is done, he said. Vera nodded. Thank you, she said. And she meant it completely on the bridge. General Vorkan did not fight it. That surprised everyone. His officers had expected him to argue, to demand explanations, to refuse. But when the security team came to escort him from the bridge, he simply stood up from his command chair, straightened his armor, and walked with them. At the door, he stopped. He turned and looked at Dr. Webb, still sitting in his chair at the back of the bridge. You knew, Vorkan said, from the beginning. You knew exactly how this would end. Webb looked at him with tired, honest eyes. We hoped, Webb said. There is a difference. Vorkan stared at him. What are you, he said. And the question was genuine, not angry, not military, just a creature trying to understand something it had never encountered before. What kind of species sends 12 people to do this? Webb thought about the question seriously. The way he thought about all serious questions. The kind that has been through enough. Webb said quietly. We have had wars, General. Many of them. Against each other, for thousands of years. We have destroyed ourselves over and over and rebuilt over and over. We have learned things from that, painful things. Things you only learn by surviving them. He paused. We sent 12 people because we have learned that the most dangerous thing in any conflict is not the weapon. It is the person who knows exactly when not to use it. Vorkan looked at him for a long time. Then he walked out. The fleet stood down one by one. Across 200 ships, the weapons systems powered down. The assault formations broke apart. The ships moved back to neutral positions. It took 40 minutes. Vera stood in the communication center and watched it happen on the screens. Ship by ship, the little indicators changing from red to yellow to green, and she felt something she had not allowed herself to feel for the entire mission, relief. Just for a moment. She let herself feel it, then she put it away. There was still work to do. Reyes came back first. He walked into the communications center with his hands in his pockets like he had just been for a walk. He looked at the screens, looked at Vera, raised his eyebrows. Done, Vera said. Good, Reyes said. He sat down on the floor with his back against the wall and closed his eyes. In 30 seconds, he was asleep. Chen came next, then Torres, then the others one by one. Over the next 20 minutes, each of them came in, checked the screens, saw the green indicators, and found a place to sit or lean or lie down. They were exhausted, all of them. 19 hours of moving through a hostile warship. No sleep, no proper food. Operating on training and focus and the kind of will that does not come from physical strength, but from something deeper. Something that gets built in dark places over many years. Webb came last, escorted by a young Scath crew member who looked uncertain about what to do with him, now that everything had changed. Webb thanked the crew member politely and walked into the room. He looked at his 11 teammates scattered around the floor and the walls, and he felt something that he did not have a clinical word for. Something that his years of studying human psychology had never quite captured in a definition. He sat down next to Vera. Commander Didnt wants to talk, Webb said. When we are ready. He wants to discuss terms. Terms, Vera said. The official standing down, the withdrawal. He wants it documented properly. He is that kind of person, I know, Vera said. Chen told me. Webb nodded. He looked around the room at the sleeping and resting figures. Give them an hour, Vera said. Yes, Webb agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Did you believe it, Webb said, when you made the transmission? Did you believe what you said about what Earth built? About what comes next? Vera was quiet for a moment. Yes, she said. So did I, Webb said. Another silence. General Vorkan asked me what we are, Webb said. What kind of species? What did you tell him? The truth, Webb said. That we have been through enough to know better. That we know when not to use the weapon. Vera nodded slowly. She looked at the screens, all green now, all quiet. He will think about it, she said. For the rest of his life, he will think about those 12 people and that question. Good, Webb said. That is the point. The meeting with Commander Didnt lasted 2 hours. It was formal and careful and documented in triplicate, the way military agreements always are. The Scath fleet would withdraw from Earth's outer systems. The ultimatum was cancelled. The destroyed colonies would be acknowledged formally. A communication channel would be established between Earth and the Scath Empire, through neutral parties. No war. No further destruction. Just a withdrawal and an open channel and the understanding, on both sides, that this had come very close to something that could not have been undone. Didnt signed the agreement. Vera signed it. Didnt looked at her across the table when it was done. Your transmission, he said. What you said about what Earth built in 90 days. Vera looked at him. Is it real? He said. Vera held his gaze. Does it matter? She said. It worked. Didnt thought about this. He was a very intelligent creature and he understood what she was saying. The transmission had worked not because it was necessarily true, but because it was possibly true. And with humans, possibly true was enough. Because everyone in the galaxy had learned at some point that humans did not bluff the way other species bluffed. When humans said something quietly and without drama, it was usually the most honest thing in the room. He nodded slowly. Safe journey, Captain Mace, he said. Safe journey, Commander, she said. The 12 humans walked back to their shuttle. They walked through the corridors of the Eternal Dominion with Scath crew members watching from doorways and junctions, hundreds of eyes following the 12 black uniforms moving steadily toward Bay 7. Nobody stopped them. Nobody spoke to them. The crew just watched. They watched the way you watch something you want to remember, something you know you will tell stories about, something that does not fit into any category you already have. In Bay 7, the shuttle was exactly where they had left it. Untouched, undamaged, sitting small and gray under the bright lights. They boarded in silence. Vera was last. She stopped at the top of the ramp and looked back at the bay, at the lines of Scath soldiers who had come to watch them leave. She looked at them for a moment, then she nodded once. Nobody nodded back. But something shifted in that room. Something too small to name but too real to miss. And Vera felt it before she turned and walked inside. The shuttle undocked. It moved away from the Eternal Dominion slowly, the way it had arrived, unhurried, steady, a small gray shape in the enormous dark. Inside, most of the team was already asleep. Reyes had been asleep since before they undocked. Torres was close behind him. Chen was sitting with her eyes closed and her head back, not quite asleep but not quite awake, somewhere in the middle where exhausted people go. Webb sat near the front and watched the flagship getting smaller on the screen. Vera sat in the pilot's seat. She set the course for Earth and then sat back and looked at the stars. She thought about the last 24 hours. Every room, every corridor, every decision. Every moment where something could have gone wrong and didn't. Every moment where it almost did. She thought about the 12 of them. These strange particular people who had been chosen not for their strength but for their depth. Not for what they could destroy but for what they could survive. Not for how loud they were, but for how much they could do in complete silence. She thought about all the places they had been before this. All the dark rooms and bad situations and impossible odds that had made them into what they were. All the things they had carried for years that most people never knew about. She thought about what Vorkan had asked. What are you? She did not have a better answer than Webb's, but she had her own answer. A private one, the kind you do not say out loud. They were people who had learned that the most powerful thing a human being could do was stay calm in the room where everyone else had lost their calm. Think clearly in the place where thinking was hardest, and care, genuinely care, about the outcome, even for the enemy, even at the end. That was what Earth had sent. Not weapons, not an army. 12 people who had been broken and rebuilt so many times that they had become something the galaxy did not have a name for yet. 3 days later, back on Earth, Vera sat in a small office and gave her report. The people listening were not generals, not politicians, not military commanders. They were a small, quiet group. The same people who had put this team together, who had spent 2 years finding exactly these 12 people and preparing exactly this mission. Vera gave the full report. Every detail, every decision, every outcome. When she finished, there was a silence. Then the woman at the head of the table said, "Well done." Just that. 2 words. Vera nodded. She stood up to leave. Captain Mace, the woman said. Vera stopped. There is a new message, the woman said. She slid a single paper across the table. It arrived yesterday while you were on your way back. Vera picked up the paper. She read it. It was short. Just a few lines. From a civilization she had never heard of. From a part of the galaxy that Earth's ships had never reached. From a species whose name translated roughly as the Vorath. The message said, "We have been watching the Scath situation with great interest. We have some concerns we would like to discuss with Earth. We are sending a delegation. They will arrive in 30 days. At the bottom of the message was a small symbol, nothing Earth had seen before, and a single additional line. We have heard what 12 of you did. We want to speak with the 12, not your leaders, not your military, the 12. Vera read the message twice. She set it down on the table. She looked at the woman at the head of the table. The woman looked back at her. Rest first, the woman said. You have 30 days. Vera picked up the message again, looked at it one more time, then set it back down. She walked to the door. At the door she stopped just for a moment, the way she had stopped at the top of the ramp on the Eternal Dominion. Then she smiled. Just slightly, just enough, and walked out. The galaxy had learned something that week. Earth did not send its strongest. Earth did not send its loudest. Earth did not send what anyone expected. Earth sent its most dangerous minds, its deepest survivors, its quietest and most unbreakable people. And the galaxy would never, ever make the mistake of underestimating them again. The end.